Welcome to another review here on Ray Rounder Does Music, where today we're veering into the original direction I wanted to take this channel on, doing a pop-punk review of Knucklepuck's new album, Shapeshifter. I originally had a top 10 most anticipated albums of 2017 list, in which this album held the third spot, and for good reason. Their last album, Copacetic, held a special place in my heart. It was good music to put on repeat when I was reading a book, and it was that very stereotypical but very identifiable and easy to identify with emotionally sort of aesthetic, I should say, where you're growing up, trying to go through high school, and just doing the best you can to deal with these emotions and events that keep happening in your life. It was a concept album without being a concept album. That concept being, again, growing up and getting through life, trying to adapt to the world as it goes around you. Now, In Your Crosshairs and Pretense were on my phone after a short while, although the album itself didn't really hold much replay value due to the fact I'm just not a big fan of the lead singer's just sort of shouty vocals, which sometimes are really more prominent than in other songs, but for the Copacetic album it was really give or take, and I just wasn't really too into it. But back in July 27th, I believe, they actually dropped their debut single for the album, Gone, and it had time to sit with me. I initially loved it, and I still do, as this day right now sits. I listened to it earlier before I even made this review, in fact. It still has the familiar spark that it had when it first debuted, that for sort of, it's something new but not too dramatically new in the sense that you don't know if you're going to enjoy the album or not, just for the plain fact that it's doing reviews for pop-punk albums are really weird, because with pop-punk, it's a genre that everything has been done to revolutionize it, and if anybody's going to revolutionize it anymore, it's going to be the giants like Sum 41 or Blink-182, or if they were still a thing, My Chemical Romance. Those are going to be the bands that revolutionize it, and unfortunately bands like Knucklepuck, they're not going to bring anything new to the table. But the following single, Double Helix, kept the hype train and overarching energy was still present and still very powerful and fluid. The music video was very striking visually. That's one thing Knucklepuck has always managed to do, both visually and musically. They have a very striking and easy to identify sound and look. If you look at a album's cover, you'll know right away if it's a Knucklepuck. Just take out the words. That's not just if you're a fan. There's a certain feeling around their music, their art style. Everything about the band is very specific, tailor-made just for this band. Now, again, I touched on the issue with the stereotypical shout lyricism used from the lead singer, whose name escapes me because I'm honestly not too big of a fan of Knucklepuck. And from song to song, it becomes a sort of nagging thing throughout the entire album. It makes it difficult to want to listen to a second time. Even back when I was actually a fan of this band, back when Copacetic actually dropped, I think even back then when I enjoyed those songs, I didn't really find myself going back to the albums very normally or on the regular, just for that pure fact. I understand it's a staple of the band, it's something popular within the genre. I'm just not personally a big fan of the whole, I'm going to yell at you for an entire song to make it sound like music thing. Granted, I listen to bands with rough vocals like Thy Art Is Murder, While She Sleeps, Dance Gavin Dance, all those. It's different. You can't look me in the eyes and say rough vocals are in the same category as the lead singer's shout lyricism. It's just not good. I'm sorry, I'm not really. There are some really good lyrics and verses in here, like with the lead single Gone. You have Gone, doesn't it feel good to be invisible, just like the way I used to be. That raw honesty and emotion is always there in a Knucklepuck song. Without doubt. That is one thing they've nailed down and made their own within the pop-punk area. Very few bands, though, some of those bands being Sleep on It, Water Parks, or As It Is, can actually accomplish this thing where they can get this feeling of honesty throughout their songs and albums. But Knucklepuck does that without a flaw, without a hitch. They do it every single album and every single song. And now here's where we get into something that I actually touched on in my second review on this channel, Citizen's As You Please album. Knucklepuck is suffering from the symptom here on this album that every song is sounding the same with very little variation throughout. Conduit, of course, is a slower song with a slower feel, down-tempo, which some people are actually saying is one of the better down-tempo pop-punk songs, not only in their discography, but many other pop-punk discographies in the Big Four. That Big Four being my own personal, at least in the modern pop-punk scene, Real Friends, As It Is, Knuckle Puck, and Neck Deep. And they're one of the... I just don't have a nice way of putting this. I'm trying not to just sound negative on this, but everything is sounding the same on this album. I'm pretty sure I just kind of spaced out and went in a different direction than what I started with when I started that sentence and when I ended with it, just because I'm trying to find the right words to describe how much of a disappointment this album was content-wise. The lyrics are good, but then you have the mediocre instrumentation here. Nothing special is really being done. I mean, consistency, that's something that I almost said Neck Puck. Knuckle Deep, consistency is something they keep very close to their chest. It's something they can always get going. But there's a point where consistency just becomes repetitive and just not good. When I look at Copacetic and maybe even Calendar Days and Indecisive, the split EP that Knuckle Puck put out earlier this year in around March, I believe, then I look at Shapeshifter. They're all different variations of the same things. Which I get, as a band matures and gets older, you start to run out of ideas, things become not so easy to flesh out like you used to be able to. You gotta cut corners and resort back to this very small, enclosing ball of music and ideas eventually, but Knuckle Puck is hitting a wall here. There's nothing special that they are offering at all. I wanted to believe in this release, with the pop-punk genre being so, again, oversaturated with just the same thing over and over, and you hear promises of something different. Tracks like Conduit, Everyone Lies to Me. There's so many hints and promises that this album is going to be different. It's going to be something that actually takes Knuckle Puck just to that next plateau. But it all just comes together as this big what could have been. So I'm going to end this review here. I'm going to be giving the album a 5.5 out of 10. That really hurts me to say because I had high hopes for this album. It's average and a half, really. The review is over, however, and thank you for watching. If you want to dispute my comments on the album below, we have a comment section. I'm happy to talk to you about it. Feel free to like, dislike, subscribe, and unsubscribe, whatever you want to do, and after that I'm going to have to go wash my ears out with good pop punk, and I'll catch you later in the next video.